I'm Gold Derby editor Daniel Montgomery here with Bad Sisters production designer Mark Geraghty. You've worked on both period and contemporary projects in your career. What are the challenges of designing for something like this in the modern era relative to recapturing the past?
Well, I think the biggest, I suppose the biggest challenge to a designer, or any designer taking on a contemporary piece, is that everyone has an opinion and seems to know what it will look like. So your audience is vast and everyone will have an idea of what they think it should be. Whereas a period piece, people trust you more, they've less knowledge, so all eyes are on you to get it right, because everyone knows what contemporary life is like, and they can be very harsh with their opinions. So there's a slight bit of pressure on that one,
And this show in particular is interesting because it goes back and forth in time between before the character of John Paul's death and after his death. Were there many differences in sets and locations from past to present? Were there any continuity concerns that you were working with?
No, not really. I think, a lot of the flashbacks were very recent. So, we had some stuff in the cottage, obviously, that was from before. We had some stuff in Eve's house. But no, most of it was quite recent. So that wasn't a sort of an issue. It was sort of trying to stylize the past. There was very little time lapse, so we weren't no one concerned, Yeah.
And how many sets would you say you built for the show?
Well, I mean, every character had a home to live in, And so if I may talk about the main set, which is which was Eva's house, and that was their parental home. So we built the exterior of that on a beautiful landscape looking out over the east coast of Ireland with the sea in the background on the edge of Dublin. And we built the interior of that in the studios in London. And then every other set we sort of made a decision. It's very difficult to film upstairs in houses. So when we went to locations, we usually used the ground floor. So any of the bedrooms, for example, in Ursula's house, in the Claphan's office, in JP and Grace's house, all those interior bedrooms and upstairs pieces were built in studios. Minna's house, which we shot location, but again, we built the basement in the studio as a studio build, all for convenience. And also when you're designing, they're very specific. So when you're designing, you might not necessarily find the right location. So to build something, there's no compromise. You're designing for exactly what's written on the page. So yeah, we had quite a lot of sets actually on the show. And again, moving into buildings that we were shooting during COVID, so no one wants to be in a hospital, and we had some hospital scenes. So we'd move into empty buildings and create hospitals in them, or build small bits of sets in the studio. So it was constantly ongoing. And, in every single location we went to, we dressed for the style of the show.
And how else would you say that, COVID, being such a unique experience that so many productions had to deal with, how would you say that affected, and changed the challenges of your work?
It was, believe me, you sort of quickly forget, but it was so tough. We were shooting in 2 different countries. We had a very tight regime of COVID protocols. So you're getting to work every day, you're getting tested. Everyone was glad of this. It was fantastic and it worked really well. But every now and then we would lose a department. And constantly, for me, designing is quite an organic experience and hands-on. To try and do this over Zoom and sort of say, put that chair there, put that picture there, it's so frustrating. So they were just some of the I found it really frustrating. 10 days before we were supposed to, the first day of shoot, the whole art department, because it's close contact as well, we're now all working on Zoom trying to get the show together. So it was really tough, and travel restrictions because we were in so many different locations, and people, we were very careful not to go and ask a hospital, can we use you? Because we know, that's silly. So we never even looked for hospitals. We looked for other buildings where normally you can knock on doors. A lot of doors wouldn't have been open to us, and we respected that,
And did you get any design inspiration from the Flemish series Clan that Bad Sisters is adapted from, or was this entirely its own
To be
design?
honest with you, I sort of make a decision when I'm doing a show. I didn't look at it at all. For me, if there's a book written and I'm handed the script about the book, I won't read the book unless the director or the production company asks me to. For me, it's on the page, and you got to treat the script as your Bible, and that's what you look at because that's what you're been asked to design, nothing else. So, having talked to, you obviously before you get a job, you're going to pitch for it. So I pitch for what's on the script, and if they like my ideas, then I'm in the right direction. So I try and really, really concentrate on the script rather than anything else.
Speaking of those scripts, how is it working with Sharon Horgan? You mentioned a lot of people have opinions on a contemporary piece. Of course,
Yes,
she as a creator of this knows these characters incredibly well. What was that collaboration like?
Sharon was absolutely fantastic. I mean, Sharon's gosh, she's an amazing woman, very, very creative, very hands on, um, very specific in ideas of people, characters, and we worked extremely well together. So what I sat down and did, for Sharon was taking her script. I did an imaginary map of the world, of where our girls lived, where they ate, where they worked, and I did this whole wall from A to B of the proximity of everyone, the type of houses they were in. So we could, in our own mind, because I mean, again, we're creating an imaginary world. This could be set anywhere. It just happens to be an Irish. In this instance, it's about an Irish family, but this could be absolutely anywhere. So I wanted to create this world where everything seemed harmless on the outside and quite nice to live in. Everything's peaceful, and it's only as we get closer to it, we see the cracks appear when we get behind, you know, into people's lives, and then it starts to fall apart a bit. But yeah, no, Sharon was fantastic to work with, very inspirational, absolutely inspirational.
And one of the important you talked a little bit about Ava's house on the show. There's of course John Paul and Grace's house is another significant
Yes.
location in the series. How did you reflect those characters and that relationship in that script?
Yeah. So I mean, look, to delve deep, I mean, we're basically forensic scientists trying to work out how these people live, and um, and what causes them and puts them into the situation. I mean, Eve's house had layers of history because this was the family home. So, I hope if you look close enough, and I think it came across, there's remnants of their childhood, old board games, old remnants of their parents, pictures, types of furniture, and, and the third, many, many layers. And then Eve being a modern woman, her layer on top of that. It really had to feel like the family home, and you could feel the love, and you could see the setting, and you knew this family, there was love there. And this is, they were brought up in a beautiful place, and it seems like Eve took over the mothering when the parents died, especially with the youngest of Becca. So the whole love and the closeness of that family it's fantastic. And of course, the way they nap at each other, that's all families. It was very real. So everything about that house had to be real, and it had a history. When we go to Grace's and John Paul's, that's a completely different challenge because, Grace came from this house, which was all homely, earthy, everything else like that. She was brought up in this environment. But suddenly she's just met this man that has changed her, and she's so completely different to all the other sisters now. And her house had to be that way as well. So strong, cold, Nouveau Riche architecture, want to be middle class. And John Paul had controlled her. He was like a Stepford wife. This is what he wanted her to be like. So it's like Chinsky curtains. It's like colors from magazines rather than, homely colors. So they lived, they lived the sort of that mirror ball thing where what you're supposed to look like. Everything JP wanted from the boat in the driveway. The really chintzy decor inside. There was nothing homely about it. The colors were quite cold. They weren't warm. Didn't feel, you feel uncomfortable if you sort of put a crumb on the table. And so that's not where she came from, but this is what this man has done to her. So I think it was very important to show that in the house. So there's the two biggest contrasts, I think, in the whole show. Eva's house to John Paul's and Grace's. And the sisters can see this and feel there's something wrong here, knowing it's not her. It was all his influence and who he wanted to be, her to be. You know, that's the type of person. That's what the show is about, this manipulation of this man, you know.
And then, of course, the other sisters each have their own unique spaces
Yeah,
as well. BB, for instance, has this, edgier, assertive personality.
yes.
What about her personality did you want to bring into her?
Yeah, I think, look, when you read about her, she's quite strong. She's a very strong woman, strong. She has an opinion. She's very intelligent. She obviously has a beef with John Paul, but again, it's her strength. And, because she lost her eye, there's a bit of anger in that woman as well. But she has her own life, very strong, very intelligent. And you can see that in the house she's in, and her relationship and everything. She is like, yes, she went for something and she got it. She's, she went out there. She's strong. She's an organizer. And it's all sort of near the ODC, clean living, with the white colors and the perfect house and everything else like that. So there was that. And then we have Ursula and JP, or Ursula and, gosh, I can't remember, and her family. They're sort of holding down 2 jobs, 3 kids. They live in this homely mess, where you don't have time to clean up, like the babies who have a very organized life. Ursula comes from a place where she probably got married young. She's having an affair with a photographer, but her home life is that struggle of 2 people, 3 kids in suburbia. So it had the mess, it had the, it had the colors of a family home, but it was chaotic all the time, and that was her life. And you feel again with Ursula, we're showing that life, which is a life everyone starts out with, that dream family and things all romantic and everything like that. But the reality is, look, this is hard work, And we got jobs, we're tired, we're knackered, we have to eat, we have to get to training, we have to do all that stuff and be places. So she wanted escapism from that. And she had an affair with a photographer, because at this stage of her life, this is what she really wanted to be. She missed her freedom and missed her chance. She probably got married. So the family home was very important. And then for the photographer, I gave him this beautiful studio. That's that dream that she wanted escapism from. And that's the world she wanted to live in. And, it was really to escape that chaoticness of her life. She wanted, to escape. So the photographer's place was very important. And in a way, he missed the relationship thing, because he said he was going to give up all this and buy her a house. And she's going like, what? This is, I'm trying to get away from this. I want to be in this, studio, and I want to be this different escapist life. And then, of course, there's young Becca, who's just a wild child, and we gave her a beautiful little sort of study apartment looking out over. And you can see her life is fun, carefree, and it's the strong colors, the mess everywhere, no responsibility, and her place had that whole feeling about it. But the one thing that I tried to bind with every one of them was they all had something to do with the sea, because I think the sea was very important, and that was their safe place. So, trying to bind that together, whether it was photographs in the house, or with some colors I used, or you could see the sea, or you could always you always felt you were close to the ocean, except for JP. The best he could do was have a boat in his driveway. So I kept him away from the coast. So it's quite tricky. You got to go into the layers and dig deep, to understand these people, and hope it all gels together and people get the story, because there's so many layers to, so many layers to it.
And you briefly mentioned Minna's house with that taxidermy studio in the basement and the walk-in freezer. That's certainly one of the most memorable locations of the season.
Amazing.
How much work went into that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so the brief I gave to the location people was, look, I need something different. This lady she's a wild character, carefree. You know, she obviously lived with JP, and there's something odd about this woman, but you know, she reads really carefree, and she's also Swedish, so she's got that Nordic influence. I said, look, try and get me something Scandinavian here. So when they brought me to this house in London, I just went, wow. I said, this has been, are you sure you didn't build this for me? It was absolutely everything I asked for. And it was just one of those amazing, that suited the character so much, you know, and it was everything I asked for. Obviously, the interior dressing, it was a family home, but we took all their furniture, everything out. We brought in our own layers. You know, it's all that taxidermy, it's collectibles, mad furs, mad colors. Sort of everything was left to center in there from the artwork. You could tell by this is the crazy woman that lived there. This is where JP was brought up. You know, so there was definitely something off about the whole thing. And the basement we built as a studio set because that was so specific. The taxidermy, and you know, that was so much fun to do with the fridge and the body, and it was fantastic. Yeah, it was great fun to do actually. Yeah.
And you know, you talked about all the Garvey sisters and how they all have these different lives and aesthetics. Is there one that you would say is the closest to your own personal style and personality?
I don't know. I'd like to think I was brought up in a house like Eve's, and I think I was. And then maybe not as chaotic as Ursula's, you know, with young kids and a wife. Yeah, you know, somewhere in between Ursula's fantasy life and the life she lives at home, I would think. Yeah. But definitely the influence would have been the family I came from. Very, very much a great upbringing in a great family home. So that Eva's was easy in that way. You know, yeah, that was great. Yeah, I understood that one first. Yeah.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on Bad Sisters, and thank you so much for talking with me about it. It's been a pleasure.
It's fantastic. No, thanks for having me on. Great. Thank you very much.